Hey guys, thanks for joining us for episode 4 of our podcast. Before we do a quick intro, Kaylee and AJ, did you guys see that Janine from Treehouse Geckos produced this super cap out of the tuxedo line?
Yes, from her
Dude, that's
lines.
crazy, right?
It's
Yeah, it's so
beautiful.
cool.
I much
Yeah.
prefer, this is bad to say, but I really prefer her line of caps. They're so unique.
Yeah,
They are.
I'm over here drooling, hitting her up like, "Hey, when do you want to sell me one of those?"
Yeah. She's got some really
I'm
cool
sure
ones.
I'm one of many, but
Yeah.
Put your name on the
yeah,
list.
beautiful. And honestly, she's got some incredible animals that are not the cappuccino stuff.
Mhm.
Like her her charcoal stuff and that dark stuff's really cool. Her empty back stuff is really cool. So she's got a lot of really nice stuff going on. So if people haven't seen Treehouse Geckos, go check it out.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Her stuff is super nice. Yeah. It'd be awesome to get her on here sometime. So we'll
Yeah,
try to
this
meet
is our
up.
this is us sucking up to her like, hey, you want to come on the podcast and
join us.
sell us cappuccinos?
While you're at it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, my name is Harry from Zero's Geckos. I'm a newbie in this hobby that brings questions that many new breeders might have. And AJ is from AJD Reptiles. He's co-hosting with me, and he brings a lot of experience and wisdom to the hobby that we can all learn from. And we don't have a name for this podcast yet. There's no bells and whistles. There's no intros, outros. We're not fancy, but it's always been a good time chatting with AJ and all the guests that we have. And today we're super thankful and privileged to have you, Kaylee. We were able to steal a little bit of your time to chat with you.
Yes.
And so Kaylee is from Copper State Cresteds, and I'll link all her information in the description. And so make sure to say hi to her and reach out to her and tell her that she's awesome, because she is. And Kaylee is one of the first people that I messaged earlier on. Kaylee, I saw on your Instagram this lily white female, and it didn't have the normal yellow dorsal bumpy stripes. I was like, oh, what is this? It's amazing.
Yeah.
And so I have that girl right back there, and
Awesome.
she's beautiful. Yeah, I think that's kind of my connection with you. And
Yep.
for you, AJ, is this your first time meeting Kaylee?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we might have interacted online, but as far as a phone call or a face-to-face, for sure.
Yeah, awesome. So thanks for joining us, Kaylee. I know you're busy. I know you just got off work, and we really appreciate you. And so tell us a little bit about yourself. Where were you born and raised? Where do you live? Family, if you want, pets, other hobbies, and give us a snapshot of who you are.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Scottsdale, Arizona. I have done a small stint. I went to law school in Los Angeles, so I know a little bit about California.
Yeah.
And I have lived in Omaha, Nebraska, which is actually where I got my first crested gecko. They actually have expos out there, and I went to an expo and found a crested gecko and had a friend who had a crested gecko and was like, sure, let's have a pet. And then I ended up moving back to Arizona because it's really where I'm from and where I'm comfortable, where my family is. All my ties are here. I feel like I'm a serial entrepreneur hobbyist. Serial hobbyist. So I am an equestrian. I have a horse, and I compete in a sport called eventing. And so a lot of my time goes into that. Then I also stream on Twitch and am a gamer, so I am a little bit of a nerd. And then I have some rentals that I run. I'm also in corporate America still. I'm an attorney. And then got into geckos. And getting into geckos was just that story. Went to an expo, knew my friend had one, really loved them. I have always had pets. I currently have, outside of geckos, I have my horse, I have 3 dogs, I have 6 chickens in my backyard that we just ventured into. We're trying to really be sustainable if we can. And a bearded dragon. And then obviously my geckos. So I've always had pets. I've bred rabbits in the past, and so geckos are a little bit lower maintenance than rabbits. And then kind of just fell in love with them and went for it.
Yeah,
it's a little bit about me.
No, that's awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
The amount of hobbies you have, you sound like me.
Yeah.
uncontrollable number of hobbies.
Yeah, I feel like
That's awesome.
I always have to be doing something and feeling busy. So like I built my own chicken coop last month just because I was like
Wow.
I needed a project. So I'm out and now I'm taking on gardening. So I'm starting raised beds
Wow.
and I always have to be doing something.
Some people call that ADHD. I just call it productivity. You know,
Yeah. It's
you
like
just
it's
gotta
good
harness
stuff.
it and use it.
Yeah. I feel whenever I tell people they're like, "Wait, what do you do? You do a lot. Whoa, you do all those things." But it's
That's crazy.
so
Yeah.
healthy, I feel like, for our minds to always be doing something.
Yeah, to stay like active and learning new things and
Hmm.
just gaining those new experiences, and then all that stuff just passes on to other areas of your life, right?
Yeah,
So that's
absolutely.
super helpful to do and be able to kind of gain those new experiences.
Hmm.
So you've talked about, you have bearded dragon, you got into animals kind of through the expos in Omaha, you said
Yeah.
Omaha.
It's actually in
So
Lincoln, but near
okay,
Omaha, Lincoln,
Lincoln.
Nebraska was my
Okay,
first expo.
cool. And so what was kind of like the catalyst? Did you see a gecko or see, animals at the show and think, I just want to have pets? Did you see it as like a business venture? What was kind of your thought, and what was kind of the mindset when you came into the hobby of reptiles?
So I got my first crested gecko just as a pet. I enjoyed it. I liked it. And with anything in my life, I start researching, look it up, look at the hobby, I look at the industry of anything I do,
Yeah.
and realize that geckos was like this little niche of like really popular breeders and a whole industry and environment and business that then I started researching. Really, because I had bred in the past rabbits, I was like, oh, I want to look into this. Especially once I saw that people were successfully making it into a side hustle, is what it is for me. It's a side hustle or a side business, side hobby. It's not a full time
Mm-hmm.
thing for me at this time, and I don't expect it to actually ever be. I would say I'm a hobby breeder, but the first person that really I caught because of their marketing is Zengex, so Chase. He was the first one that I really saw some of his tricolors, and that was the first thing I fell in love with was tricolors, and I'm currently focused on tricolors still. I definitely am a person who just likes to do one thing really well when I do it. So I immediately saw lily whites and tricolors and his high whites, fell in love with his whole collection, and he was actually the first breeder I purchased some geckos from, and that was why.
Wow.
Yeah, I just went for
Yeah,
it.
you went from like 0 to 100 on
Yeah.
quality, huh?
Hmm. Yes,
I don't know what the gecko you bought at the expo was, but you really went. You
Oh,
took a
that
really
gecko
good
does
leap.
not live here anymore. It was a pet quality
Pet
gecko.
quality. Yeah.
And I
Okay.
rehomed it just to a friend when I realized that I'd gotten a Harlequin that I wasn't going to breed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I definitely am one of those people that likes nice things. And so naturally I liked the expensive geckos and decided if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it exactly with what I want, which is lily whites and tricolors, and with the best, stock that I can purchase at the time. And then build to what I have now.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go off script a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I want to hear about, because if you're really into tricolors, so I'm kind of new into tricolors, and I've been buying some myself. What do you think makes a good tricolor? What do you think are some lines out there that kind of are consistently, when you see an animal and then you find out lineage, you're like, oh, that makes sense? I'm just kind of curious, from a person that is hyper focused, what are some kind of like some big ideas about tricolors that you can kind of pass on to the audience?
So tricolors in the truest form to me are three solid even amounts of coloration. So a dark base, I go for dark bases. You can have red bases. I just don't like that it kind of muddies with the orange or yellow. So I don't work in reds. I go for dark base with two pretty even. Higher white is my preference. I think a really clean white on a tricolor plus a really bright orange. I know there are some gorgeous yellows, which I do have. So I would say if you can get something that's close to that 33% for tricolors that are really bright,
Yeah.
and a clean white, because what I think a lot of times is you struggle with, you get the muddy base or you get a yellow, white, and then you've got the third color, which kind of blends with it. My current obsession, and I'm very sad to have seen him go, was Eric Vivez. He was 502 Geckos, and then he turned into Derby City. And him exiting was heartbreaking for me, but my two main tricolors are actually from him. I got so lucky. I haven't really revealed, I've put him on my Instagram, but he's not full size yet, but I am seriously excited about this gecko. It is so incredibly orange. It's got almost blooming white. It's just spread like crazy on this gecko, that I expect to be really what I want to produce. So I'm hoping he follows through. I got Main Street Geckos made really nice tries with Ajani and Karma. That is another male, or I have a female from her. So obviously a couple people that have exited the hobby. I think Caledonia Rax is doing really nice tricolors. She's very small. She produces, I think she has like 30 adults.
Chrissy?
Yeah, Chrissy Bachelor, but I don't know how to say her last name.
I always see her last name and I have no idea how to say it.
No, she makes really nice stuff, but expensive. I would like to own one from her eventually. Tara Lee, I have some great tricolors from her. The current struggle with, I think everybody, is the Lella Wrap lineage. It's everywhere.
In tricolor?
It is. I think it was really? I have it in, well, the problem was Zengex, or Zengex, however he wants to say it. His Druid line has Lella Wrap in it, which makes a beautiful tricolor. I have a Druid male that I am now starting to phase out of my lines, only because that in the background. I feel like Lella Wrap just made a lot of nice stuff in a wide variety, more than we thought, I guess. And I've had Oklana, Zoological. He's so into lineage that talking to him kind of opened my eyes to what I should be mixing and shouldn't be. Another one was Emerald City. I feel like my favorites all exited.
Or all the people that are not around.
Yeah, they all left. So at least for me, I snagged a good number of nice geckos from them. And then the other open door that I haven't opened in tricolors yet is adding in a white wall, which I think Hector of Northern Virginia is doing really well. Allie Ross is starting to really come up in her white wall line and joining it into a tricolor. And then Sam with Crestopia, she makes incredible. I would say all of those are like collections I really envy and enjoy. Her Orange Dream machine is up there on my wants list.
You named a lot of awesome people and some people I'm going to see this weekend, which is fun.
I'm very jealous of you, because that is one thing I will say I incredibly lack on this West Coast, and not being California West Coast, is going to expos. We have one in town, and it's twice a year.
Wow.
And our struggle is they sell out to big name stores. So most of their tables are sold to our reptile stores. And so us small timers.
So it's just all the same stuff.
Right. I'm like, you can walk into that door every day of the week and pick up a gecko. So we really struggle with selling in expos. But I would love to be able to finally make one of probably Tinley eventually.
Yeah.
Meet people in person.
Tinley would be a good one. Yeah. There's so many crested geckos at Tinley. It's crazy.
I did use the Noah Bounds, Mayor Bounds plug, and I picked up a couple really nice geckos through them at Tinley last year. Which was great.
Yeah? Did you they were your ghost shoppers
there?
Yeah,
I gave him, he knows my lines very well. He knows my collection, so I gave him what I was looking for. I was looking for another new male, and he actually snagged me a almost full coverage Pangea female, which I was content with, but it had been labeled male and she went female, and I don't think anybody's mad about that most of the time. So
That's normally not how it goes. So.
Yeah, right. Especially from Pangea, they're pretty good about sexing, but nope. And I got a I don't know how to say it. Is it Geckonidazed?
Geckonidazed.
Geckonidazed. I got a really cool yellow from there. Aleppa and Parsival, I think, is the combo. So I have a little niche outside of my comfort zone, which is yellows. I've got some really cool yellows as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, have fun getting yellows without leather wrapping them too.
That's the craziest part. I think I really, being that I loved Chase's stuff, I kind of like, because I went with Druid, who has Lelo Wrap in the background, I almost like cornered my whole lineage. So I very much diversified with going for a couple of females that didn't have it.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely struggled with that a little bit, just because the Gilpins and I are friends, LIC Herps, and so we did a lot of trading. So I have like 2 distinct yellow lines. I have like 3 distinct yellow lines, one of which is pretty much like as strong of Lelo Wrap as you could get, and then the other ones are separate. But for the longest time, you know, people would reach out to me and they're like, "Is this Lelo Wrap?" And I'm like, "Yes." And then they'd be like, "Is this?" And I'm like, yeah,
all of it. Sorry, all of it.
my yellow, I think my yellow line and the Gilpin's yellow lines are like the ones that people are most saturated in the market.
I think I will disclaim, I think sometimes we have to let go a little bit of our innate, I wouldn't say I don't ever plan to line breed, but we do have to look at, we have a very limited pool. At the end of the day.
I wanted to ask you about that. I know I've had some conversations, little snippet conversations with Noah about it, but what's your kind of view on what is, what is two related? What is, is it at a certain point, probably every pinstripe animal goes back to the same animal.
Yeah.
Every red animal goes back to the same animal.
We know lily whites
so
do.
Even if
for a fact.
Obviously lily whites, xanthics, cappuccinos, all that stuff is all single origin. So what is the balance of lineage tracking and kind of monitoring relation of animals, and what's kind of the point where we can say, all right, this might be overkill. What's that balance for you?
For me, I'm trying to at least keep to a great grandfather, great grandmother at my limits.
Okay.
I don't even think I have that currently in my stock.
So 3 generations back.
Yeah, I don't even know. I don't think we've really delved into, as much as other reptiles, how line breeding actually truly affects them long term. I just don't think people, it's been pretty openly not done. I don't plan to do it just because I don't have to do it. If I had, though, a gene that popped up that I recognized as maybe something unique, I think you have to make the decision of going for it. It was like the lily white. I mean, they ended up with 25% being supers that passed, and they had to take that risk to find out what it was. I think if you can try and diversify, but I also think we shouldn't be hanging people for a couple of generations back. That's maybe the bad word to say.
Yeah,
but,
I think that's fair. There's so many animals that are unidentified lineage that people buy and breed and have no qualms about, right?
Yeah, all the time.
So many animals sell off Pangea's table, and people breed them to who knows what, and nobody
that might have come from Pangea and they didn't know. And that's the other thing that you have to recognize is, like, there is just, I don't think we've seen. There's sometimes where they don't mix and you're getting like spine deformities and stuff, and you don't really know why, even if you can't track lineage. I've seen that happen. And obviously you just have to be responsible, as a breeder, and make that decision to change things around. I try to diversify. I've got some really nice lineage. But I also recognize that sometimes when you're focusing on certain types of genes, you're going to run into a lot of the same lineage.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're working on, like, if you really like drippy or white spot animals, it's like a lot of that stuff goes back to like Toulouse twerp or some stuff from Derek Dunlop. And there's a lot of, if you like a specific trait, it dead ends somewhere.
It does.
That's all I'll say.
And if you're making, I guess in my opinion, healthy animals that are, the correct structure and great looking, and they have no genetic issues, then, you have to kind of make that balance and be comfortable with it.
Yeah. No, I think you have a really balanced view on that. Harry, do you have any opinion kind of on, talking to breeders? And I know that you and me and Brian, who have talked about it, and others, what's your thought
on the line breeding? I'm just absorbing. I'm trying to learn. So even as you talk, Kaylee, it makes me think, how long have you been in the hobby? Like, when did you start? And
I actually started in 2019. So I feel like I'm very young and new, but I also am a scholar by my nature. I want to know as much as I can pretty quickly. So I was one of those that dug, when I was buying a lily white, dug all the way back through all the articles and all the studies that Extreme Cresteds did with lily exotics, and just wanted to know as much as I could. And I think that that's my biggest thing for people wanting to get into this hobby is don't just take one person's take on it. Like, read as much as you can, talk to as many big breeders as you can to really understand how they do their keeping and their breeding, their pairing, their seasons. Just do as much as you can while also keeping good relations. I think that was one thing I automatically do pretty well, as I'm a good people person. So I was able to reach out in a non feeling pushy way to people and get the information I really wanted. I actually used Chase pretty quickly from the beginning, and he was still more social back then. I joke about Chase. He's become more of a hermit in the last 3 years. But he was a really big wealth of knowledge for me from the start, because he had different mindset of the size of your enclosures, how you keep them, UVB. He was big on pushing that, and I have all my adults on UVB. Not that you have to, but I went that route. And just how I keep mine is I went straight for kind of a breeder setup while being sustainable. So I have full bioactives for all my adults.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, because
awesome.
as you guys were chatting, I was a bit lost. I was like, I don't know all that history, guys. But it's awesome to hear, because I love how you're 2019 and you already have this wealth of knowledge, and I think that speaks volumes to kind of how you want to craft this hobby and produce your own stuff. And I think that's amazing. That's something that I aspire towards. And so that's amazing.
I actually have a fun story about the gecko you bought from me, if we want to go on a slight tangent.
Do it.
I moved out here in 2019 from Omaha. So actually my dad and I moved with 6 crested geckos in the dead of winter. And they were all good, didn't drop a tail. But I got out to Arizona, I started researching who was here. And Eddie Shelton is out here. And he hasn't been, he's kind of dropped off. He's of the breeding thing too. But I actually befriended him, and I knew he had a really kind of what I call a hidden collection of really nice stuff out here. And he had a male called Overachiever that is a really cool tricolor lily. And just by making friends with him, he actually let me breed his Overachiever. So your female is out of that line. And that was my only loan I've ever done. And I wouldn't even call it a loan, because he let me take him for a month, which whoever is that generous in a gecko world, I will say that'll probably never happen for anybody else. But Eddie is a really good guy. So I got kind of a real big boost by breeding what I find is one of the coolest tricolors straight from Lily Exotics, and creates that really nice white that you mentioned earlier without that yellowed outside.
No, that's a cool story. That's amazing.
I wish Eddie would come back more, though. He's really, he's like in the recluse zone now.
Oh, no.
As well.
Too much exposure to people. Just after a while, you just hermit out.
Literally. He honestly, I think a lot of people start exporting to Korea more when they stop wanting to deal with U.S. sales.
Do you breed mainly cresteds? Do you have any other sort of geckos or other animals? You mentioned it a little bit, but Mainly
I
cresteds.
only breed cresteds. Yeah, I also have a fat tail. I have a fat tail and I have a bearded, but they are just pets to me. They're
Got
just
it.
kind of a little, and of course they went for the really nice morph. So I have an Oreo fat tail and then a really bright red bearded dragon. But I do not see myself venturing outside of crested geckos. Again,
Okay.
I'm a very one type, really well kind of person.
Good well.
I
Yeah.
also as I mentioned before, I give my adults all 18 by 18 by 24s, or I have some custom built PVC enclosures that are 18 by 24 by 15, something like
Wow.
that. So I don't want to get so large that I feel like I'm overwhelmed or that I'm not offering my adults what I can or the best setup.
Yeah.
Though I do have some males in 12 by 12 by 18s because it's what they like and it's what they keep weight in, especially during
Yeah.
breeding season. Um,
Hmm.
so I definitely I think I'm a crested gecko only kind of
Yeah.
person.
No, that's cool. Yeah, we'll talk about your setup in a
Yeah.
second, but how big is your breeding
Yeah.
collection?
I have about 100 geckos, including hatchlings and juveniles.
Okay.
Um, so it's pretty small. I have 9 pairings this season between 4 different males and 9 females. Um, Trying to think through it, but I have a pretty small collection and I actually really want to keep it about that because it's quick for me, it's easy to maintain,
Yeah.
and I can offer all of them like very hands-on. I can see all of my geckos every time I'm in there and really feel like I know where their health is at.
Yeah. So you mentioned you have tricolors and lily whites. Are those are your main focuses?
Yes.
Okay. Gotcha.
I have a yellow, a little small side yellow line because I happen to get a really nice yellow lily white from North Geckos. Or is it Northern? Everyone in Canada.
Northern.
Yeah. No.
I was
Yeah, Northern Gecko.
Northern, yeah. And it's the same thing, that really stark white on a really bright yellow base.
Mm.
So I've actually been pairing that with some dark base females, and I have some insanely high pattern stuff that I'm hoping for a 2024 probably breed because they're just deciding to go really slow on
Yeah.
growing up.
Hmm.
And I got a one-off yellow that has turned into just a crazy nice drippy yellow female that's been producing wildly nice yellows for me. So I have a little like side project simply
Yeah.
because I happen to have really nice yellows that came out of it.
Gotcha. Yeah. So you find around is that your average, about 9 pairings per year per season?
Yeah. The last 2 years I've been maintaining about that.
Yeah.
And it goes for my setup too, which of course we'll get into why I kind of am comfortable at that number. But yeah, I feel like I started my first season, I just did like 3 pairings. I wanted to
Yeah.
get comfortable.
Yeah.
I also mainly went for grow outs, so I was waiting for those to grow out the nicer quality. I had a couple adults obviously to pair. But I did not want to be stuck with pet quality sales
Yeah.
and
For sure.
struggling with geckos that people didn't want.
Yeah.
So I was really, kind of closed with what I actually paired and waited out a lot of my grow outs.
Mm. Yeah.
So you talked a little bit about your enclosures, so I want to dive
Mhm.
into that.
Yeah.
So you're doing glass, bioactive primarily. Are you using Exoterra, Zilla,
Yes.
Zoomeds? What are you using?
I have 4 18 by 18 by 24 exoterras, and then I had a custom build out of PVC. So sadly, this builder was great for all about a year and doesn't exist
Oh no.
anymore.
Yeah.
And built me beautiful enclosures.
Oh
So
no,
they are
you know
PVC.
how to pick them, right?
Yeah, I know. They all right. I'm like, I get these little niche, really great deals, really great quality, and then they're gone. So maybe because they were underpricing themselves, I won't lie. But I sadly recommended this person to a couple people, and they had to get refunds. So I've got some beautiful. I have so many people that always
Oh
ask me
no.
about these enclosures.
Are the
So
pictures
in
on
the
your
PVCs, are you doing? Sorry, Harry, you're good.
No, are there pictures on your Instagram of your enclosures? I gotta look at them.
Yes, I need to
Okay,
do an
I'll find them.
updated room photo, but they're the white enclosures. They're like so stunning.
Okay,
And they have
sweet.
acrylic fronts, so and doors that open. They're beautiful screen top, which was rare at the time, at least when I had them built. Nobody was really doing screen top because I wanted to give UVB. So yeah, I have that. I do have a full set of um, aquariums that I converted with I Heart Gecko fronts. So those are my smaller 10 gallons for, sorry, 20 gallons. I do not use 10. 20 gallons for my 20 gallon lots for my males that kind of do better and a little bit smaller. So my males like to lose weight during breeding season. And I use them for grow outs too. So right between that 20 to 40 gram mark, I kind of toss them there. But they are full bioactives
So in
as
those
well.
PVC,
Mm-hmm.
in those PVCs, are those bioactive as well?
They are. Yes.
Those they have a drainage layer and everything?
Mm-hmm. I've been struggling with my drainage layer in them because females go under it. So
Yeah.
I believe I might try like a super glue or silicone for that screen mesh this next round that I redo them. But it's great because they go under and it's really moist down there. And it's fine. So those specifically,
Yeah.
I don't keep wet. I don't keep a wet layer because I know those females have been digging under, being trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Have you had any issues with isopods and eggs or no?
I have not. The only eggs that have ever been eaten have been infertile or bad eggs. I've never had them chew. I also don't go. I only use. I don't use any of the like more aggressive isopods. I only use blue and orange in my enclosures and springtails, and that's been my best balance. I think you get a little, like even dairy cows can be a little aggressive with their protein intake and calcium.
I hear even dwarf whites can be bad too.
Oh.
I won't go for dwarf
Like
whites.
dwarf whites can
of that.
do damage too.
And they reproduce a little too quick, so their population booms, and your tank isn't really going to keep up with them. Whereas the oranges and blues will actually die if they get overpopulated.
Wow. Oh, that's a really good tip. Yeah.
They'll drown themselves in the food bowl or something.
Yeah. So I exactly all the time. Yep, and they become a snack for some of my geckos too.
Yeah. So are you feeding primarily diet, or are you feeding insects? What kind of what does your feeding schedule look like? Both what you're feeding and how often and
Okay, so I specifically feed Pangea. I've tried homemade as well. I like the consistency of Pangea. I specifically use the red bag with insects and apricot with a 60-40% mix. So 60% of the apricot, 40% with insects. I will actually give credit to Caledonia Rax for that one. I talked to Chrissy because I had a couple hatchings that were a little odd. I had one with a kink tail, and I was trying to figure out if it was feeding or if it was incubation, and I have narrowed it down to incubation, that there was just a couple oddities, like 2 eggs. So I redid my feeding to be really consistent. So I do those 2. I also will mix in some extra cricket powder, just because I feel like sometimes I do a little bit better with a little extra. I breed my own dubia roaches, and so I have a whole colony myself of dubia roaches, and I feed, depending on how busy I am, I'd love to do 2 feedings a week of dubia roaches, but realistically, I probably get 1. And a lot of my adults don't take them. I do offer them, but most of my adults actually go off of bugs, and I refuse to have crickets in my household, so that is why I have dubia roaches.
The other day, my daughter had found 2 crickets in her bed. She's like, "Why are all the crickets escaping?"
Yep.
So with the dubia, are you putting them in like a dish in the cage, or how are you doing that?
I've told a couple people about it. There are Amazon tea light can holders that are perfect for medium and small dubia roaches. Or you can go to IKEA and they sell a pack of 6, I believe it is, 5 or 6 tea lights, and it's like for 5 or 6, it's like $4. And I put them in that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I've got a million of those.
Yeah.
I put my feeding cups in those.
Yeah,
Or
it fits feeding cups for my adults. It's my watering bowls for my adults as
Yeah.
well. And then it's my bug bowls I have way too many. That's most of my storage is just all of those.
Wow.
I've got like 400 of them. So.
Yeah.
Is it?
I know I have a lot.
They've collected over the years.
Yep.
I keep buying more, thinking
Okay.
like I don't have enough, and then I find another box of them somewhere, and I'm like,
Right.
oh, I guess I didn't need this.
So yeah, that's definitely a tip for newbies if you're looking for affordable ways to water, feed, and bug your geckos. Get tea light candle holders.
Awesome.
Yeah, the IKEA ones that are like 22 cents a piece, or
I'm looking it up now.
Yeah. Or Amazon has a really nice one right
Yeah.
now. That's like a pack of 24. Not that everybody needs that many, but it's great.
yeah, it's good. I mean, I don't know what you guys. I haven't actually talked to Harry or anybody really about this. What do you guys think about the whole like? There's such this market for the like magnetic ledges. I've never used one. What do you guys think?
Anything that is magnetic,
I just feel like
that
they
can
just smear it down the
covered.
glass,
Yes,
too.
it gets covered and stuff, or anything that's a silicone or stick-on like cup. I can't. It won't stick to anything long term. And our gecko, I mean, my females are like 50 or 60 grams. They're knocking it over.
They're gonna pour it down.
I won't use them, and it's not sanitary. I like to be able to put things in the washer, sanitize it, and scrub it. And I feel like those just they're pain.
Yeah, I have 2 tanks,
especially the ones that have like that rock-like
texture. You can't clean those well.
Yeah,
if you have one gecko, sure.
Yeah.
If you're planning on having one really pretty bioactive, go for it.
Yeah.
Harry, what do you think? Do you have them?
Yeah, I have two tanks right here that have the magnets. Yes.
Get rid of them.
Nothing special.
Yeah, we're
nothing special.
Unless they're like the clear, smooth.
We're just throwing them
kind,
under the bus.
Then yeah, we're throwing you under the bus. But if it's smooth and clear, maybe.
No,
but no.
No. The rest of them have these. I got them from Amazon. They're kind of like these glass tea, like candlelight holders. And so, but I don't know if the doobies will stay in them. But I put water in them, and I put my Pangea mix in there. And it works well.
As long as you keep them clean, and if you don't have super hard water. That's been my experience with dubious climbing out of them.
Oh, I see. Yeah, and then
if there's hard water stains, they can climb out.
Oh man,
they're climbing right up the side.
Yeah, no, for sure. The water here is hard, and so I have to wipe down my enclosures a lot.
Same.
I have suction cups for the plants, which sucks because like you said, they pull them down all the time.
Well, my recommendation there is pool noodles.
Pool noodles. Okay.
I use pool noodles. I cut them down to size, and I love them because I can pull them out, scrub them down, put them back in there, and then I wrap my vines around them.
See. You wrap them. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Do you feel like you can, Kaylee? Do you feel you can keep the foam noodles clean? Because I just feel like they would get moldy. Like I've avoided them because I thought they would mold. Maybe not for you because of your humidity stuff, but
it's
for me, I'm like, I feel like I'm gonna throw them away like every 2 weeks. I don't know.
I've never had them be moldy. They're pretty smooth plastic. I get kind of a thicker, denser plastic on Amazon, and I use my guest bathroom tub, and I get it really hot and soapy, and I like soak everything in there like once a month and get a deep clean on it. Yep.
So do you just cut them like a half an inch wider than the cages so that they'll hold?
Yep. Yeah. Some of them fall because I've got some females that they're just heavy and they will jump on them, and I just go in and put them back up every time I'm in there, and I've just accepted it.
Okay.
They're fine with it.
Yeah, I used to do some like PVC perches where I would kind of make perches out of PVC so I could clean them and stuff. But I might try the noodles. I know people use like the black pipe insulator, which is basically just like pool noodle that's black, I think.
Yep. I have those as well. The problem is they're hollow in the middle usually, so they start to scrunch or like go and cave in the middle. So I can use those in my 12 by 12 by 18s. But it's not as long of an actual, noodle. But for the bigger ones, I got the full size thick pool noodles.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you get pool noodles in not like all the colors of the
Not pool
rainbow, or do
season.
they have
Oh,
to be it?
yeah, I get them in
Yeah.
only green, actually. I ordered just green because it looks
Okay,
nice in my
nice.
white enclosures. Yeah, so green it
Nice.
is. Yep. Yeah, I don't want
We're
the
getting
rainbow.
all the
I'm
pro
not that.
tips here, Harry.
I know. I know. I have a very specific. I'm a bit OCD with that area, my enclosures.
Yeah,
But it's good.
I'm like that too with some of my breeder enclosures are all like food dishes in the exact same spot. They all get like the same setup.
Same setup. Yeah, same setup. I mean, I've
Yeah,
seen
for
your
better or worse, it's like this is what you're getting.
yeah, I've seen your wall of like grow outs. I'm like, okay, I get it. I like the uniformity.
Do you guys have the
Yeah,
thermometers in there as
just
well?
the shoebox racks, you mean?
Yep. Shoebox racks, and I do shoebox racks for my my grow outs or my juvies as well.
Do you guys
But
use
not to
cheap
your extent.
Amazon
Definitely not
thermometers?
to your extent. What was that?
Do you guys use those cheap Amazon thermometers for inside your cages?
I do
Oh,
not.
okay.
No.
Just the room.
I had an initial scare. Arizona's hot,
Yeah.
very hot, and so I went for Govies
Okay.
pretty quick,
There's one right there.
and because it will give me a warning if for some reason my AC goes out.
Got it.
So I have Govee, I have Bluetooth and Wi-Fi ones. I don't have obviously in every enclosure, but my main ones at different levels. I have one in each of those, and then one in the main room as well.
Okay. Yeah, I have a Gobi just outside of all the cages, but within I have those like cheap ones, but the batteries die out really quick.
Yeah, I don't always trust them. I feel like they can go out real
Yeah.
easy. It's really struggle.
Yeah. What I had to do is
Yeah, I just do the whole room.
okay. Yeah, what I had to do.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
just do
what's the
whole
room temp?
like
Yeah,
Kaylee does.
on the Gobi, it gives you a warning.
Yeah, room temp and room humidity.
It gives you a warning, and then I have I have from if I'm away from home, I'm able to use the control the AC from my phone, and so I turn it on.
Yeah,
when
I
it's
have one of those, the Nest as well. That's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
brand I went with because Arizona again is
it's crazy hot.
dangerous for if something goes out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the I know I told Harry this, but that's one of the reasons why. So when we were shopping for houses down here in North Carolina, I prioritized finding a place with a basement, which is really uncommon in the South.
Very uncommon.
But that gave me that added level of security where even if I don't run my air conditioning, it's 97 degrees outside. In the basement, it's still like 73. So
yeah, I wish.
I actually right now I have to heat my basement in the heat of summer.
Wow.
Like I have
cold.
oil-based space heaters on thermostats in my rooms in the heat of summer.
That's
Because
crazy.
it's too cold.
Yeah,
and I have all
wild.
my vents closed in the bottom half of my house. I have all the vents closed from the AC, and I'm still running heat.
Yep.
You guys run humidifiers as well?
Oh my!
Which
Well, I
is
have the
great.
opposite route.
You guys run humidifiers?
So you have to. I wanted to ask you.
Sorry.
Yeah, humidifiers. Do you have to do that in Arizona, or do you
I
whole
do
house
not.
humidify, or what's that like?
I actually have maybe an older view of the humidity that geckos need. I actually really support less humidity than a lot of people for a long time were putting out there. I actually only mist my tanks in Arizona every other night, which is shocking for a lot of people. But I went bioactive to help maintain a lot of that.
That's a big thing.
It changes everything. If you can go bioactive and you're worried about, I'm busy, so I need something that's low maintenance that can keep consistency. So bioactive is so nice for humidity levels. And I only mist my babies unless they're having some shed issues. My shed issues are usually actually lack of humidity, whereas most people's shed issues will be too much humidity. So most of the time when people tell me they're having a shedding issue, I'll ask them how much they're misting, and it's usually too much. Mine are very rare, but usually babies that are just a little lazy, and I miss them a little bit more. But I only mist every other day in my house, and I don't have a humidifier. I think that too much moisture is actually much more dangerous for the species than we knew or expected, and I have had no failure to thrives, which I think is very rare. Even in my, I've had a couple runts. I think everybody has some interesting hatchings just when you go through a season. And I think it's because I went straight for really focusing on my care and also not over humidifying them, which is pretty risky for young geckos.
Yeah, I think that I definitely have seen a lot of people overwater geckos. That's the biggest issue I see. Like when I have somebody reach out to me like, hey, my animal's not doing well, like 9 out of 10 times it's too wet.
Yep.
Is the issue.
Absolutely.
So
I've that's exactly what I noticed pretty quick and figured out pretty quickly that my setups, especially for adults, as long as they're in bioactives, I can go every other night, and my kids are my babies are all fine with an every other night misting. Yeah, so I always recommend that too. Yeah. I tell people to mist less.
It's interesting if you look at New Caledonia, the ambient air humidity is really high, but when you think about it, it's not confined. So there's air movement, right? So there's air movement, and it's not like they're in a box that's 100% humidity. So even if the air is humid, there's still wind and there's air movement and there's surfaces that are not wet. And I think that's where people go wrong is you can have a really humid space, but you need airflow. If you're going to go high humidity, you need
So where do you guys keep your
you need that, and you need space for sure. I actually don't.
My ambient's at like 65.
65, AJ. How about you?
I don't get hung up on it. Crazy enough. My house probably sits at 35, 40 naturally. My gecko room is, I think, in more 45 range. And then my tanks will sit around 50 when I've not misted 45, 50.
Got it.
But I don't really get hung up on it. I do a really thick, a really heavy misting on my bioactives, so they're wet. But it soaks down and then it kind of holds it at a good point. And I have, knock on wood, had no issues with that. And health-wise, they're all great.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
Yeah. The only reason mine is 65 is because that's what it sits at. I don't try to make it that.
You're in North Carolina. So, you are stuck with the humidity. You have no choice. Yeah.
AJ, aren't you having a monsoon right now? It's all wet anyway.
My humidity level. Yeah, right. It's my strategy is not a specific humidity level. If it starts crossing over 70, that's actually when I'm like, do I pull the dehumidifier out? Because this is a little overkill.
Yeah, so. I think it's I exactly what you said. Is they're in open spaces, they're up in trees. Trees do not hold moisture. It's not the same as what we think of humidity. And they're not out sweating. You feel humidity when you're getting hotter, and that these geckos aren't moving during the day. I think it's a very different understanding, especially the people that like to preach about the actual environment of New Caledonia. It's what is working in captivity, what is keeping them healthy, what is successful and able to be maintained consistently, that I think we have to focus on.
Yeah. Everybody's environment's different. Like I don't think there's any specific right answer. I think talking to people that live near you and kind of getting an idea of what works and then kind of starting there. Because,
Absolutely.
I've kept animals in a few different areas and it's been different everywhere. Even when I moved down to North Carolina, I just kept a really open mind. Like I'm going to observe and just kind of roll with the punches and see where I go. So it ended up being more humid, and so spray less. And and it's my basement's cold, so I have to heat it.
Yeah, that definitely throws you off.
It's interesting.
For sure.
Yeah.
Oh
man. So, business side, Harry. What's your? Do you have some business questions? I know that's kind of your businessman, right?
Not that much. I think all of us, if we're in this gecko hobby, there's a bit of entrepreneurial spirit here, right? It is fun. It is a good hobby. There's a lot of creativity in terms of what you can plan and map out, and I think that's awesome. But there's also this aspect of sustainability in terms of growing your projects, right? And so, Kaylee, you mentioned that this is definitely just a side hobby, side hustle for you. What is your goal, your long-term goals in terms of what you want to do? Like, do you just want to maintain what you have now? Do you want to grow it out a little bit more? Are you trying to hit certain metrics of this business aspect, or how do you see it?
So I am definitely maintaining. I'm pretty comfortable around the 100 gecko number. I know right now I'm about to actually kind of hit the like hard decisions of my current collection versus my grow outs of who's gonna need to pet, because I actually am surpassing my comfort zone. I think 150 is probably a pretty hard cap for me. And that's because I have my geckos in one room. And again, I give my adults pretty big enclosures for one room, one normal sized room. And I prefer to keep all of my babies in racks, which then again limits you on space. And so I'm pretty comfortable where I'm at. My personal business goals is to create that perfect tricolor consistently throughout my lines. And also with the lily whites, I really have been pushing for that really clean white, really high coverage, kind of really contrasty adults. And so that's my goal, which means I'm gonna have to make some decisions with the breeders I have that I really like, but aren't meeting those goals. So I know they'll probably go to someone's collection that would be great. But I'm definitely moving towards I want to be somebody that people are selling out their tricolors is the best way to put it. I'd love to reach the level that some of these big breeders that they post it, and if you're not the first person to say I want it, it's gone in under an hour. And I feel like that's really a chase. And I was watching Eric Favez, really hard to grab, hard to get. So I'd like to stay small, but really high quality with what I'm putting out. I still feel like I'm learning my own lines. I'm learning what pairings are actually working for me versus like what just they might be two great animals, and that's something that people don't maybe know that are getting into it is you might have two insanely amazing animals and you put them together and they produce under what they are. So I'm learning my own lines, and I feel like this season has actually been my first that I've really seen creating better animals than what I have, which has been my goal as a new breeder. I want to be able to produce that like, oh wow, that's nicer than what we expected. So I'm working towards that. I think that that's something that new breeders need to understand with their mindset of business wise, what they want to do, focus in on that, and also recognize that it's going to take time, because raising them up for 2 or 3 years, depending on what your female's doing, really. And then learning your own lines and what they mix with actually takes quite a bit of time and just trial and error that I feel like this year and going into next year with some of the males I have, I'll really be doing and getting used to.
Have you found that it's been hard trying to figure out what pairs well with what, how things mix, and all the whole genetics aspect of it, or has that been something exciting for you to kind of study and figure out?
So I feel like I push a couple names here of who are my kind of mentors. And Noah has been that person for me. A big thing that I did not know originally was that how pinstripes and non-pins actually correlate, and how to pair pins and non-pins to create what I want. So I actually have a pretty big pin line for being a tricolor person. So if you don't know genetics of tricolors, a lot of times you're really high end tricolor coming from unpinned animals or not fully pinned. because it drips better, at least from my experience. There's certain pinned lines that drip like crazy, but at least for me, my lines right now, my tricolors are really picking well with unpinned animals. I have a whole line of pinned tricolors as well, kind of tricolors, kind of high whites, that are pairing on another side. That was one thing that I'm learning still, and I had Noah really help me explain that how you pair might not be just off of the looks of the animal, but also their traits and how that might mix.
Yeah, that's cool.
So that's been interesting.
Yeah. So you're talking about the interaction between like pinned animal or pinned tricolors and traditional tricolors, and you're saying that like a lot of the tricolor stuff has Lellerap in it, which is a pin, which is a yellow pin. What do you think? So what's kind of your approach to that? Are you trying to bring in maybe some unrelated pin animals into tricolor lines to maybe deepen the genetic pool on that, or kind of what's your thought?
So I feel like I'm still so new to this venture, at least seeing how they work. So I also will say I picked up really nice animals that maybe looking back I should have maybe pinned better on what I had. So I picked up Azrael, which if people know Azrael, she paired with Calvin Klein and created Puika and a couple of the really big crazy pinned tricolors. But then I realized I don't have a Calvin Klein, which is a very strong pinned, very high white pin animal, but doesn't even really have high pattern, but just mixed with her that she's a pin really well. So I actually snagged a couple that fit that just because I really think I would like to create something. I know she's got insane lineage that she throws into crazy animals above her own, I guess, stature. So I have some Venom Valentine male from Sam. So I would like to figure out if I can mix that combo. But currently I have them kind of separate projects. I have a pinned tricolor right now and a kind of unpinned tricolor. And I learned actually that Lellalap Druid line as well with pins and doesn't, Chase has like this magic over there with whatever he's creating of how that, I mean, Homunculus is one of my like dream geckos. But I have a male from him and he's a pin and he performs really well, but he performs really well with other pins and making tricolors and making high whites. So that was my first last season that I learned. I put him with some unpinned tricolors and was wondering why I wasn't getting these really high whites that I expected. And it was because he went better with pins.
Interesting.
Yeah. He made nice stuff.
That's really interesting. I wonder why.
Yeah. So I've got unique lines in that way that just the way that they perform is not always what I expect. But my male from Eric that I'm growing out right now, it's a really stunning unpinned, just kind of broken pin. So I expect that a lot of my tricolor unpins will go with him, and that is kind of what I'm waiting for to really see if it all falls together. If that makes sense and makes something that I expect it should really cool.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got a lot of big plans. If you have like 9 females going, but you have 100 animals in the rack or total, you've got some stuff brewing,
I do.
I'm sure.
And that's exactly my struggle right now is I have a really cool, I like really high colored animal or high whites. So I'm kind of venturing the line of a couple high white animals. I've got a couple extreme animals. I've got my really strong tricolors, but I'm also trying to still maintain kind of a smaller size, which I think this is exactly this aspect that everyone starts to kind of, I'm not going full into the hobby of like, this is my business yet. So I really do have to keep it scaled back. But I think this is where you start really kind of having to make hard choices with your collection of what you're moving on and where you're focusing. So I've got a really cool male from Oklahoma that it's drippy, it's covered in pattern, it's really creamy, and it's a pin. So I kind of want to see how that correlates because I think it might throw some cool stuff too. I've got a couple extremes in here simply because I wanted to put some extremes with my really nice white lily whites to throw the pattern kind of up the side more. So I've got a couple projects, but they all still kind of come back to high covered tricolor or high white kind of focus. But yeah, I definitely have a lot of grow outs that I will be trying to make cuts on because it's hard when they're really nice.
That's the worst.
Isn't it?
That's the worst. If you guys came to my house, you'd be like, this guy's a complete hoarder. I mean, I have hundreds that I just can't decide. Like,
yep.
You can pass
do
them
I
on.
sell them? Do I keep them? Do
up.
I keep them longer? You know,
pass on the good stuff. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Right.
I expect in fall to have some actually a couple of my females moving out that are all really, I love a female that overperforms than what she is. So I have a couple of those females that I'm attached to because she throws such above what her coverage is. I'm like, she's throws out of her league is the best way to put it. But I'm making the decisions probably to move some of those out, to move my own creations and own grow outs because I've only been in it since 2019. I'm actually creating my own now that are finally starting to breed.
Yeah.
And that's something I also have tried to focus on is I think as a breeder, it's one thing to you have to take a ton of other people's collections and make them your own, but also then breeding your own animals and then, developing that. So I'm hitting that point where I've got, of course, a couple that male, a couple that I'm like, you're so nice, but you don't quite fit my project. So what am I going to do with you? A couple yellows that did that to me. So we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, you just got to kind of keep making those small decisions and adjusting as you go, and you'll find your way.
Yeah. And I would say the biggest thing for anybody is like find people that understand your collection that you're comfortable talking to. So get somebody to bounce ideas off of in the industry. Make sure they have a good reputation. Not that I will say nobody's perfect. We're all not going to get along. That's life. As we know, if you get to know the gecko community, not everybody gets along, but find people that you can connect with, that understand you, your goals, your collection, maybe not how big some people's are, but with mine, I've got some people that understand what I'm working towards and I can really bounce stuff off of them.
Yeah. It sounds like you're talking to the right people, working with good people. So
yeah,
you're gonna do well, I'm sure.
Yes.
So I know we had talked about, this is kind of a hard pivot, but we had talked about photography a little bit. I'd like to just kind of hear your philosophy on photography, kind of what your approach is to capturing images of your animals, sharing them on social, maybe things that you've found respond well, people like, certain types of images, or they, certain types of images portray the animal better. So just love to hear your feedback kind of on photography as a whole for geckos in the hobby.
Absolutely. So I have always done Instagram. I've always done social media prior to coming into Gecko World. I am an equestrian and way larger than my other account's equestrian account. And so I learned pretty quickly how to build Instagram, how to kind of use hashtags, which I will say are kind of Instagram's in a weird influx right now. I will say that.
It's very, I don't like it.
No, I don't either.
I don't like what they're currently doing.
Reels are everything right now, and I absolutely hate them. They just
they're just degrading the platform. It's just becoming just like a bunch of degenerate videos
TikTok.
that don't actually.
Yeah.
Well, it's becoming TikTok, but in the gecko space, it's just becoming noise.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
It's like everybody's just, and me included, I'm just like, I don't want to make reels just to make reels. If I make a reel, I want it to be like impactful or meaningful or interesting, not just like this is the only thing that works.
Right. So when I went into it, I knew I wanted to focus a bit on my social media and knowing that like Facebook Facebook groups and a brand is really important. The big names that we like, you can recognize people's photos. So AJ, I know your photos. It's gonna be in a white deli cup with like your sale photos.
Yeah, a lot of them. Get ready. The next round is not. The next round of photos is not in a white deli cup.
I'm being thrown off.
I'm gonna break your mold.
But there are like, oh, I know this background is this person's photo, and this type of photo is by this person. I think I really looked up to Emerald City Cresteds. She's insanely good photography. And hers were outside. So my problem is my environment does not let me go outside with my geckos to take photos. It's too hot. Yeah. So I decided, I got a light box. I got a nice light box. And I actually go with a white and black background. It's what works with my tone of lighting. It's also understanding that you want to put out a photo that's really true to the gecko. It's unedited, so you have to work with your setup and your lighting that allows it to be true to the gecko. So for me, when I add in color background, when I add green foliage, which is usually what does really well, it doesn't work in an enclosed setting in my household. So I use one prop for everything because I did want to create eventually I know that photo, I know that prop, I know that's Copper State's photo. So I do that. But I do think right now, at least with Instagram, it is Reels, sadly, that are really growing, but I only am choosing to post Reels of my geckos, of course, and not stupid Reels. So it's usually a hatching, like I take a longer video of new geckos or of what I have, kind of showing off my stock. I focus on that more when I go for Reels, simply because I want people to still see what I have. But to grow right now on Instagram, it has been real heavy.
It's been really interesting how hashtags just basically are not a thing anymore.
No, they're not.
If you actually look at analytics of photos, like I was looking at some analytics the other day of how many people are actually finding your post organically versus your own followers. And even if you are using relevant hashtags, like you'll get like one view from a non-follower.
Yeah, it's crazy right now.
What are these hashtags even for then?
And that, it used to be great. That was how you grew. It was absolutely hashtags and like photos within hashtags that brought people to your platform.
Yeah.
But now it's absolutely using a trending reel sound to get it to the top of that reel page that brings people. Now the problem balancing that is it's often not gecko people. So it's like right now, I don't know what it's going to do for growth wise, other than that I've been doing it simply because I would like to grow my page more. But I mean, most sales, actually for me, a lot do come from Instagram. I've got a lot of them from Instagram. So I've been focusing pretty heavily on that. And then Morph Market is my other platform that I really use for sales.
Yeah. Do you like Morph Market? Have you used it pretty extensively? Or?
Yes, I have.
Because I feel like it's huge in the snake world, but gecko world is not as popular.
So right now I tried a wide range. I got a website. I was like, well, let me try out the website route. Let me try out the Facebook sales page route. I feel like I've tried all of the market studies, and if you are a breeder like yourself or reptiles or Zengex, it's so good on a website. It works on a website. People, LAC, but they use like a photo vault thing. But those companies or you guys have a name that's known. So it works on a website because people are just going to Google you and they can find your website. For someone like me, it wasn't hitting. I mean, I had one sale, I think, on a website, and it's not where my base, at least for somebody new, my base came from. My base was definitely Facebook and Instagram. And then Morph Market has brought in actually a lot of sales for me. So I like Morph Market. I think it's John. He's doing a lot with it, developing it more. But there's some downsides. I actually just emailed with him. Some of the downsides, at least for someone like me, is that you have all of your information out there. I don't love that you have to have your full name shown. Being that,
Yeah, and my phone number is out there too.
Yeah.
I get all these weird phone calls,
Mhm.
and it's definitely from Morph Market.
Absolutely.
Oh,
I've had
no.
Korea call me
It's
multiple
crazy.
times recently. I'm like, I'm not big enough to wholesale to you guys, which has
Mm.
been their big pull right now. Um,
Yeah.
that's a whole nother story. But that is something I emailed them about, is because I do a lot of other things. I don't want, especially I'm a Twitch streamer. If somebody wants to find out that I have this Copper State, then they want to go to my Morph Market, see my full name. It's
Yeah.
dangerous, at least to me, in my opinion. I emailed with him and
Yeah.
he said it has to be your legal name on your ID. I'm like, well, you guys have my ID. You know it's me, but I would really like to not have my full name. Like, don't have my last name there. That's at least where I'm coming from as of recently, is the phone number, the email, the full name on display. I think is just kind
Yeah.
of dangerous in the world we live in right now. Um, I This is a tangent, but I'm actually putting this is like a serious thing I've actually been dealing with this week. I'm actually going to be changing my house into a LLC because I'm worried that much about people from each platform finding my full name and finding that my
Yeah.
house
Yeah.
is under my name,
Yeah.
which I think is real. You know what I mean? I'm an attorney,
Yeah.
so I think of these things. But that is one thing I think he's actually
Yeah.
really maybe missing the ball on. I understand he wants people to be able to legally bind each other in a sale there by having people's full names, but maybe after a sale is done, it could be disclosed then.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, that was something that I always didn't like, was I'm getting all these random phone calls, texts at midnight. I'm like, where's my phone number getting
Yeah.
out? And I figured out it was Morph Market.
Yeah.
I don't put my phone number anywhere
Well,
else.
and none of us want that. I mean, most of the time it's scammy anyways. When people ask for my phone number on Morph Market, before that was published, I was like, I'm not giving it to you. You're never someone that's going to actually make a sale from me. It's always sketchy stuff going on. So that is the
Yeah.
one hiccup that I really have been struggling with there.
Yeah. Back to photography. Camera. What do you use? What do you like?
So I feel like a good person for a budget. I don't use a large A7 or whatever Sony camera. I actually use a Mark. It's just a small click and shoot, but it is still a higher end. It's a mirrorless. It's the Mark GX7 II, or the Mark II.
Is that a Sony?
I believe it's a Canon actually. I can actually grab it if we want to, but I think it's
Canon's normally one that has Mark this, Mark that.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure it's that, but I definitely would like to move to a larger camera, a more expensive one. But I still am at the level with my own business that I can't really justify dropping $2,000 on a camera when I'm making good sales with good photos of what I have. So my recommendation for anybody getting into it is get a nice mirrorless. If you're comfortable in that $600 to $800 range. Mine takes great photos still. It shows the true quality of the animal, but of course, yeah, it's not the photography level of detail that the bigger, cameras do. But I think that you can definitely do a good quality photo with less, as long as it's, a mirrorless or something that's still nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and also most people's, if you have a new nice phone, your phone it has a really good camera.
That too.
So.
The one struggle is that it tries to autocorrect color sometimes. At least that's my experience.
Well, the nice thing about it, there's apps that unlock all of the camera's kind of back end capabilities to them. So you can do I have an app on my iPhone when I do like our YouTube live auctions and stuff. I'll be able to do custom white balance and custom exposure settings and stuff, so that I can actually dial it into my light box is set to 5200 for temperature, so I'm doing custom white balance to 5200, and that's literally a free app on your phone
Yeah,
that
that's
you
a
just
good
use
thing.
that instead of the camera app.
For
You know?
sure. Yeah, I should try that out too. I have a
So,
new iPhone, so it would
We'll have to
definitely,
get that app from you.
make sense to do that.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's definitely it. If you can make it white balanced, then go for it. And I think that's totally fine for most
That,
people in the hobby.
that's what most people's issue with photography is white balance, I feel.
Mhm. Or too
And
dark. A
so
lot of people do
that's
too
the
dark
thing.
photos.
Too dark, yeah. Too dark.
Yeah.
That definitely is a lot of people's struggles. So you are not wrong in that. So we've talked about it a little bit. I think
Yeah.
just kind of ending on this note, Harry and Kaylee, I just want to talk about like advice for new breeders. This is a thing we always kind of end on, and I think is important. So just what is some general advice you have for new breeders, like ways to get into the hobby, building collections, things like that?
I feel like a lot of this has mentioned a lot of where my mindset is, which is I think you need capital. It might not be what everyone wants to hear, sometimes a little blunt with my opinions, but
Yeah.
you do need to enter. I think a big thing to tell people is this is not going to be your get out of working a
Yeah.
real job most of the time. This is not going to be your like dream ticket. And I think that's to be said for every industry. I highly recommend if someone wants to get into breeding to have a normal 9 to 5, 8 to 5 job
Yeah.
and fund this on the side. So have the capital,
Yeah.
set the money aside, save up, and actually, I think a lot of times I watch so many people get into it by inexpensive animals simply because they want to breed geckos and they think it's going to be a ticket to their job and their livelihood. But that's no startup business. No startup business is
Yeah.
just this easy enter. You need capital, so be ready
Yeah.
to invest. Focus in on what you want to focus on. Figure out what that is, and don't follow the market necessarily. Go with what you're passionate about. I got lucky that the market started to take off on tricolors when I went into it. But pick something you're passionate about and that you want to work on long term. So I feel like a lot of it's touched on of just make sure you know what lines work for that. Start talking to those people that have the lines and the goals you want. Look at how they created it, what animals they brought in, and also setup. I think I had success because I went straight for getting a finished setup. Not that I don't think tubs can work or any of that, but I think you need something consistent that works for the animal. So if you're going to go tub route, get a tub and a lot of them and figure out how that works in your environment, which we talked about earlier. I think a lot of people kind of just wing and then they come on and tell us all their current problems with their husbandry and how to fix it. So I would say actually having the capital and starting to meet the right people in a non-pushy kind of way. Go into the groups, just listen and try and learn as much as you can before, really thinking that you know it all or anything. Because I think that's one of the biggest parts that a lot of people fail on is being unwilling to change their mindset
Yeah.
on a lot of stuff. So get to know the right people, have capital, and be ready to set up your actual room.
I like your bluntness on that, because I feel like those things are not what people maybe want to
They
hear,
don't.
but it's very true. I mean, you don't go from, one gecko to overnight being, one of these top 5 people. They got there over a long time and they probably had jobs for up till very recently,
Yeah.
And so, and like, I can just say from setting up all my stuff into proper caging and doing, like, I just did a misting system and like all this automated lighting on all these cages. It's crazy expensive. So,
Absolutely.
like, buckle up.
Yeah.
Like you're giving, like, I don't know, I probably spent like $20,000 on the cage, like my whole like setup just for my breeder animals, and it didn't help me breed any more geckos
No,
necessarily.
it
but
doesn't.
It was best for the animals, right? And it just is. It's nice to have something that you don't feel ashamed to take pictures
Yeah.
of.
Absolutely. I like to tell people I have a showroom. I have to want to go into my gecko
Yeah.
room and enjoy time in there. So again, I invested in racks so that it is easy to take care of. It's you pull out a drawer, do all the it's so easy. So I highly recommend getting a system.
Yeah.
When people get overwhelmed when they've got stacks and stacks of tubs that they have to take down each one
with lids.
Yeah, with lids and go through, and it's not sustainable for your own hobby and your lifestyle. So I recommend finding a VC builder or going to some of the big ones, ordering them. They're great, but it is an investment. I mean, my tax return from my first year was $17,000 out the door, like because of just for the geckos. It was like buying and set up was important to me to be sustainable. And so, view it as a startup business. If you're comfortable going down and franchising a different store, that's pretty much what you're doing. You're franchising a gecko business, really. So have capital for sure.
So is there, I know Harry asked this. Did you ask this to me, Harry? I don't remember. But maybe you asked Brian if there was like a number that you think is actually kind of like a baseline of what you should kind of plan to spend to get into the hobby. I know different morphs are different costs, but do you, like, if you were going to generalize, do you have kind of like a ballpark people should expect?
Wow.
I know it's a hard question because it could be like, if you're doing Xanthics, it's 50 grand.
Right.
But if you're going to do, patternless oranges, it's like,
spend a couple of
$1,500.
Yeah. I would say plan. It also depends on quickly and how much money, because you can't be somebody who has a lot of capital or comes from something that gives them capital, like a trust fund or something, and be able to buy out the best. I personally, I bought grow outs, buy them at the risk that they go male, buy them in packs from breeders, because that's going to be your best deal. I bought, quite a few from Chase, and a lot of them went male, and I sold them to other breeders that fit their lines, and that's fine. But plan to grow out, but plan on spending at least for tricolors. If you're getting a grow out right now in this market, it can be anywhere from $300 to $800 for a grow out, a young juvie. Granted, I also am not quite comfortable yet spending the $1,200, $1,500 mark on a 3 or 4 gram gecko. So it's definitely also knowing where your comfort is. I got some of my best, very nice geckos for under $1,000.
Sorry guys for this awkward break and transition. We had some recording issues yesterday that cut out the last few minutes of our recording. Yesterday was Wednesday. Today for us right now, Kaylee and I, it's Thursday, and then we're going to put it out tomorrow. And so we're re-recording, and hopefully it doesn't cut out in the last few minutes here. But Kaylee, you were last talking about being comfortable with how much you want to spend to pick up on your projects. And do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, so sorry about our technical difficulties on my side. But yeah, so when I was getting into the hobby, I obviously had picked a more expensive morph. So when I was recommending kind of pricing for what people should expect when they're getting into the hobby, I had kind of put it at a $10,000 to $15,000 range for getting started, getting something comfortable, getting nice setups. You can do it for cheaper if you're going to obviously start smaller, start with a few, do a different morph that might not cost as much, or you can go big and really jump into it. Also, shout out to my cat, apparently.
Your cat.
So yeah, you can, I would say plan on actually having the funds there for that amount, and be ready to spend. And then individual animals, I obviously have experience with tricolors. They're a bit more expensive. Lily whites, absolutely on the upper range. But for an individual animal, definitely plan for $300 to $800 on a nice gecko. Get them young. That is where you're going to save the most money as a breeder, as someone starting out, and also buying in a pack from a breeder, a couple of them, you're going to get better discounts. Obviously, you can buy an adult. It's going to be a bit more. You can get up into the thousands range. But when I was starting out, I wasn't quite comfortable, and I'm still not really super comfortable at grabbing, a 3 or 4 or 5 gram, $1,200 gecko. It's not quite my risk level yet. But definitely plan on being ready to buy when it is listed, because that is how I got everything that I have, was that I was ready to buy the moment I saw that listing, and all it took was sending them a DM, I want it. And that changes, your availability and how quickly you can get things.
And I'm assuming this is a span within like months, or just, is this kind of ongoing? Is that kind of
absolutely? Yeah. I mean,
1
I'm
month
still. Yeah. And it's definitely, I wasn't buying all at once. I definitely bought some from a breeder, a couple, 3 from one breeder, would wait until I was comfortable with the funding when other people were releasing stuff. And I've just hit the point where I'm not like buying. I finally have a stock I'm comfortable with, but I am 3 years into it. So definitely like grow as you go. But don't, like I said earlier, it's not something that you're just going to walk into with, 2 geckos and typically build into this huge business. If you're planning on this being your career, you definitely have to make an investment and start moving towards it if that's what you want.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then lastly, I know you mentioned, a lot of breeders that have helped you in the hobby, but to reiterate for other breeders, who are kind of your personal recommendations, and who would you have people go to? I know there's a lot, but
so this was thrown at me yesterday, and I feel like I wasn't as prepared. But my go-tos obviously are ones I have lineage from. As we talked about a lot of the podcast, was I had kind of the luck of like getting geckos from breeders that went out of the business,
and they were awesome
but
too.
currently
Awesome
I would say the big ones that if people are really looking for something of quality that also is going to be maybe more readily available from those breeders, it's the Cryptiles, the Zengex. I obviously like Caledonia Rax, but she is expensive. She makes incredible tricolors. Gabby, of course, and AJ. I haven't snagged something from AJ just because it hasn't worked out timing wise, but I stalk that website. And Oklana, I enjoy obviously Noah and Mare. They're super easy to approach and talk to. Those are like the ones that I've actually purchased from and am comfortable purchasing from, and know I'm going to get a good shipment in, good pack geckos, and they're going to look like their photos. That's the other thing. They're going to look like what I'm expecting to get. And they're usually easy to talk to about lineage. Allie Ross of Hidden Valley and Samantha Maddox of Crestopia. Both of them work closely with each other, and their lines also are pretty consistent. And they're people that you're going to be able to DM, ask them about it. They're going to want to chat with you. And they're all,
awesome. I hope to have all of those guys on
good people.
On this podcast soon.
You got to get more of them. I know as people kind of like open up to it, they're going to want to jump on here. For sure.
It'll be fun. Oklana too. They're down in Gabby. So we have some people lined up, so we're excited. So no, thanks Kaylee for your wealth of knowledge and wisdom in this hobby. Even in this relatively short time that you've been around, that I know that I'm pretty inspired at what can be done if you just put in the hard work, if you put in the homework, and just have patience. And so I'm super thankful that we got to chat and just see your man. Like I was really impressed just by how much So
thank you. That's the thing. Be curious, make friends, be in people's DMs as just out of interest. Ask what they're doing with their season, and everyone is welcome to DM me at my socials. Copper State Cresteds, Instagram and Facebook, and Morph Market. I'm on. That's the same name for all of them.
If you don't have a gecko from Kaylee yet, hit her up. She's amazing. She's so easy to work with. And so thank you, Kaylee, for everything, for your time. And any final words before we go? Are you good to go?
I think we hit everything.
hit
but
everything,
again,
right? We
if
hit a lot of
people
stuff.
have any questions
Yeah.
about what I discussed as well, I feel like this is an ongoing, evolving industry too, and we're all figuring it out as we go.
Yep. We're all here together, growing together, so it's
Yeah,
exciting.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And thanks for
Awesome.
having me.
All right, Kaylee, thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Awesome.
Okay,
Yep.
take care.
Bye.
Bye.